how to use GHK copper for hair growth. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how GHK copper might not help at all when it comes to hair growth and why you may have been dumping hundreds of dollars into your hair and seen no results, but I'll also show you how it actually works, the mechanism of action, the potential for hair regrowth, and we'll also talk about, does it change some of the things like graying? And we'll learn about the mechanism behind this tripeptide so that you can decide if GHK copper is right for you, but also the most important thing is what is the cause of the hair loss in the first place. So I'm Regan Archibald, founder of Ageless Future, and we put on events to help create a community around longevity and understanding peptides, understanding regenerative medicine, looking into the future of our lives. What do we want for our health? What's the thing that you could do in the next 90 days that would give you 5 years of progress when it comes to your health? Now, as we talk about that, a lot of people ask, well, is GHK copper, is that one of the treatment modalities that I need because I want to keep my hair, I want my skin to look great? Will it help? And so this video will help you understand if it's something that you want to have in your arsenal or not. So let's jump into the studies. This study was done in 2020. The title is The Potential of GHK as an Anti-Aging Peptide. What they did is they looked at hair sections and they summarized several small topical studies, typically a few dozen participants each. So they looked at this library of different studies and they wanted to say, does it actually work with hair regrowth? And so dozens of participants were in each of these studies. They used GHK copper lotions and foams that were applied to the scalp for weeks to months. They looked at hair count and shaft thickness that was measured before and after. It was peer-reviewed. There was a placebo versus control group. And what they found is that the topical GHK copper appeared to improve hair density and shaft diameter to support the hair follicle environment via microcirculation, reduced inflammation, and growth factor signaling, acting as a local regenerative cue rather than systemic forcing agent. But it emphasizes that larger human clinical trials are still needed. So don't just go apply it, because that particular study, they found that yes, there is some evidence that shows that it can improve the hair follicles, that leads to more density, more thickness in the shaft. I get it, hair loss is rough because you start getting the cul-de-sacs, you start noticing your hair thinning, and it impacts men and women. But where the data actually lies is not like, does GHK copper alone do this? And that's one thing that's missing from many of these peer-reviewed clinical trials, is the fact that lifestyle has so much to do with hair. Yes, there's genes that can get underexpressed, but really if you start looking at the fact that GHK copper can actually be beneficial, there's things that can get in the way and interact with the signaling of GHK copper, and that's what we'll talk about right now. So think about the follicle. So the follicle, you want to calm that down before you expect coverage. So if you have inflammation in the follicle, no matter how much GHK copper you're putting on there, yes, it can downregulate the inflammation somewhat, but GHK copper has a very short half-life. And so you might be just wasting your time and money and putting a bunch of stuff in your hair that's not getting you anywhere. So first thing you want to do is calm down that inflammatory response. Because when inflammation is present in the hair follicles, that's where you're going to have the least amount of growth supporting signaling. So this inflammation, where does it come from? Well, it could come from emotional stress. It could come from trauma to the body that results in pain. It could come from infections, and those infections can lead to anemic conditions. They also come from chemical exposures that can disrupt the hormones in your body. Now, DHT is a common hormone. It's the most active anabolic side of testosterone. And if DHT is overexpressed, you can notice some balding. And this is where testosterone replacement therapy can result in thinning hair. So the very first thing you want to do is say, okay, what's going on that's causing inflammation? So you want to look at your blood labs, and you want to look at your homocysteine levels, your C-reactive protein. You want to make sure that your IL-6, TNF-alpha are not high. Second thing you want to do is a gut test. Finding out if there's like a yeast overgrowth in your gut can be very helpful when it comes to the hair. You want to look at your stomach. Is there an H. pylori bacteria? So if you're anemic, you run your blood labs. Are you eating a vegan diet where you're not getting enough folate and B vitamins, specifically B12? That could be one of the triggers. Or if you are getting the nutrients, then you have to say, okay, what else could be feasting on the iron stores in my blood? Well, H. pylori is a very common bacteria that invades the stomach, and that can lead to acid reflux, and maybe you're on proton pump inhibitor or an acid reducer, and just by being on those medications, you lose protein synthesis. So you're not going to get the protein regeneration that you need, especially as you're trying to fix the hair. The other thing you want to look at is there anything in the immune system? Like, do I have any lingering viruses? Those are really important when it comes to the hair thickness. Okay, let's transition. So what else could be the root cause? Well, autoimmunity. It can downregulate your thyroid. And if you don't have really healthy expression from your thyroid, you're not going to get that metabolic engine turned on in the cells. That can cause more inflammation in these hair follicles, and it can cause a loss of signaling. If your iron load is too low, this is where red meat, but even like eating liver, and if you don't like liver, well, maybe even eating some liver capsules. You can swallow those pretty easy. There's these ancestral blends of meat. You can go to like a Sprouts or Natural Grocers, or most stores these days have this ancestral blend where it's heart, it's liver, mixed in with like bison. It's really good for you. And that can actually help with your iron status. So on your thyroid, work with a thyroid specialist. You know, the medical team at Ageless Future, they are world class when it comes to understanding root cause. Is it thyroid? Is there an adrenal burden? Do you have an androgen load that's out of balance? Like, are your hormone levels suboptimal, or are you taking too many hormones that's triggering DHT? These are all important in checking your nutrient delivery. The gut test is the most important test that you can do to see how the nutrient delivery is going, because at the end of the day, you want to look at hair loss not as what is the fast way I can treat it, what's the quick fix. And however, I do understand the value of taking action immediately on anything in your health. The worst thing you want to do is nothing. The second worst thing you want to do is the wrong thing. The best thing you can do is the right thing. But that's where it comes down to getting the right test done. Go to agelessfuture.com, meet with one of my health ascension specialists, run the right labs so you can see what is the cause of the hair loss in the first place. Once you understand what the labs mean, then what my medical team will do is they'll put together a protocol where there's very specific peptides that you'll be on every single month, cycling on and cycling off of them appropriately. They'll determine if GHK copper is right for you, or it may not be right at this time. They'll also put together an overall strategy to help the circulation in the hair, to help you start to look, feel, and perform your best, no matter what age you're at. I'm Regan Archibald. Appreciate you being here. See you on the next video.